The future of the 2024 quarterback class looks bright with Jayden Daniels leading the group. We talk through fantasy expectations for quarterbacks entering their second season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today, we're going to review the rookie 2024 quarterback class as they head into their sophomore season in 2025. Obviously, at the top, we had Jayden Daniels just go off. But, I mean, we have a lot of interesting guys moving forward. We have Caleb Williams, who was a bit of a disappointment in his rookie season. Bo Nix, who well exceeded expectations. Drake Maye, Penix Jr., and even J.J. McCarthy. Like, these are all guys that could have a big fantasy impact in 2025 and beyond. So let's start at the top here. Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams. With Jayden Daniels did everything we wanted him to do. Was the quarterback 6 in points per game in 2024, but right there with the other guys like Baker and Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow with Lamar and Josh Allen well on top. But what's realistic expectations do you have for Daniels going into his second season? Is it fair to expect him to get better, or could he have that sophomore slump like CJ Stroud had from year 1 to year 2?
Yeah, I think the one thing that's going to keep Jayden Daniels for the slump is his running ability. That's always a built-in high floor method of scoring. So when he's going to run at the same level or greater and also have a chance for more yards and touchdowns, that's going to keep things up. Now, in terms of the passing, I think that can also go up in this offense. We've kind of seen now the ceiling of a dual threat with Lamar Jackson and the career year he had last year, where you can get close to 1,000 yards rushing and still put up 4,000 yards passing, combine that all with 40 plus touchdowns. Now, Jayden Daniels has that potential. We know there's some key things that have to be sorted out here, figuring out what they want to do at tight end and the other wide receiver, see what they can do there. They need to see if they're bringing back Brian Robinson Jr. as the lead back here. Do they pivot? And would Daniels get some more goal line opportunities to score and add to those touchdowns? So they need another couple receivers that they can trust here. I think they have some potential with some of the guys behind Terry McLaurin, but they need just to kind of keep it all together, see what we get from maybe Luke McCaffrey and Ben Sinnott in a bigger role with Zach Ertz, see if they retain him. And he was pretty happy and productive last season. So a lot of the passing weapons are in flux, and he basically did it with a different weapon that wasn't McLaurin each and every week. It ended up McLaurin and Ertz, the two veterans, were his favorite targets. So just needs to find a few more targets. The running is there. He's keeping his offense coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury. They should continue to upgrade some things. So I think Daniels avoids the sophomore slump pretty well here. Look, there could be regression from his points. I think he can finish anywhere from all the way up to 3 if he gets enough touchdowns among the QBs and average scoring. He could go drop down to 8, but somewhere in between says you can still take him as a top 5, top half option here among the QB1s.
Yeah, and like you said, it is different than CJ Stroud and the Baker Mayfield and even Justin Herbert, guys that we saw like be so good their rookie season and kind of fall off after that. Because of the rushing, that changes everything for him, right? And then also there's a chance for growth just from his points per game this season, because there was 2 games that counted against his points per game, and one he suffered an injury like immediately and missed the rest of the game, and the other one he didn't play the second half in week 18. If you just take out those 2 games and only count the games he had at least 15 pass attempts in 2024, that's 15 games in the regular season. That was 23.1 fantasy points per game he averaged. That's more than Josh Allen, who was second, only behind Lamar Jackson. So definitely room for growth, and it looks pretty easy a way to like even find it when you look at just his games. He actually played the full games. It's there. Now with Caleb Williams, this is a lot harder to decide what we think about him for next year, right? Because he finishes his quarterback 20 in points per game in his rookie season. He had some really good games in there, but a lot of really bad games as well. But I will say, like, he started to run a lot more as the season went on. And in the 9 games, he had at least 30 rushing yards. He did average nearly 19 fantasy points per game, which you'd be very happy with. And a lot of those 30 rushing yard games came in the second half of the season, especially like it was in week 11, 12, 13, 16, 17. So I do see potential here for him. And hopefully Ben Johnson can make him more consistent. And because the games he wasn't getting 20 plus points, he was getting like 6, right? So it was a terrible roller coaster year for him.
Yeah, we're going to see how much are those runs designed or how much he was scrambling and running for his life when he was sacked 68 times and just trying to make something happen when he wasn't going to have enough time to sit in the pocket. Because we know the Ben Johnson system in Detroit now, it's sometimes hard to know, is Jared Goff the way they want to operate quarterback with a pocket passer, or they just realize Jared Goff has limitations, so they got to stick with him as a pocket passer. I think Ben Johnson's smart enough to know that Williams can use his legs either to get out of the pocket to extend plays or take off and run when something's not there. So I think he's going to play to his strengths, and that's the most important thing as a play caller and offensive-minded head coach that you can do. Now, he probably held on the ball too long. He could have got it out quickly to avoid taking as many sacks. So they'll work on that, get maybe some checkdowns incorporated. So that could be good. If DeAndre Swift remains the back, that could be not bad for him. We could get the checkdowns we didn't get last year, maybe some underneath routes to Cole Kmet. We'll see what they do at slot receiver with Keenan Allen going into free agency. I think they'll progress and take their shots as well downfield to DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. But when we're looking at Caleb Williams, I mean, Ben Johnson's record is amazing here. And again, we'll see if there's a bit of a defensive slide back here for the Bears. It started a little bit without Matt Eberflus late in the season. So if that continues, then the Bears are going to have to put the ball up in the air a little bit more. Now, I'm putting him somewhere on the borderline, right, between 12 and 15. That's where I'm conservatively putting him in this Ben Johnson offense because it's how good it is. And we saw what Jared Goff didn't. So that's where I'm looking at him right now. I think there's some things that can be corrected by Ben Johnson. There were some things that Goff was off doing until Johnson got to him. So I'm looking at Williams versus Goff. That's a tough decision overall in fantasy, but I think Williams, because of the running, because of the guy now having Johnson and versus the guy that doesn't have Johnson, I'm going there this season so far.
Yeah, I actually have really high expectations for him this year. He did finish as a top 6 quarterback 5 times as a rookie. Bo Nix only did that 3 times, right? And Bo Nix finished as a running back 8. The difference between Nix is that his bad games weren't as bad as Caleb Williams, right? So Nix was a little bit more consistent, and it was just all over the place with Williams. I do think Ben Johnson can fix him. He has to fix his bad habits of holding onto the ball too long. I actually, right at this moment, have him ranked as quarterback 8. And I won't be surprised if he moves up to 6 because right now it's, the usual suspects of Allen, Jackson, Jayden Daniels, Hurts, and Joe Burrow top 5. But I mean, after that, it's a big group of guys that could really land anywhere. And Baker without, lost another OC, and Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't been good for fantasy for multiple years. Right after Williams, I have Brock Purdy and Jared Goff and Bo Nix and Jordan Love, all guys who very much depend on passing touchdowns. So I do think his legs might make me really excited for Caleb Williams, and hopefully he can be more consistent as a passer next year as well. We are going to move on to Bo Nix. So I just mentioned only finished as a top 6 guy 3 times, but he finished as a quarterback 8 in points per game as a rookie. So very, very exciting rookie season for him when we did not expect that. We're going to talk through Bo Nix and Drake Maye next and their fantasy futures.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner who works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in for you. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free. Share it with your network, and you got qualified candidates all in one place very quickly for you if you're in the process and want to get it going. You just post your job easily, use LinkedIn's new feature that can help you write job descriptions and quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free. That's absolutely for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Michelle, let's get into 2 intriguing guys. And we know Jayden Daniels finished in the top 12 in scoring, however you look at it. Williams did not, but this next guy did. On the back end, it is Bo Nix. So I'm excited about what we can see out of Bo Nix in year 2 after the Sean Payton, Vince Lombardi, or the Joe Lombardi offense. It's kind of Vince's. It's handed down, but when you look at that offense, was really good for Denver and what Bo Nix could do.
Yeah, it was very pass heavy because they couldn't run the ball. So that makes me question, will a better running game for the Broncos next year if they're able to find a different running back and fix that scheme? Will that benefit Bo Nix or actually hurt him? That's a question we have to determine. But I mean, it really was a very good fantasy season for him. It started off very slow. I mean, the first month he was not usable for fantasy, but from weeks 5 through 18, he averaged 20.9 fantasy points per game during that span. Had some really big weeks in there and then some, solid weeks in there as well. Only a couple bad performances from in the second half of the season. His home road splits, though, were pretty drastic. I'll say 21 points per game at home, 16 on the road. But you can expect that from a rookie, right? I'm not too worried about that. It really comes down to like Bo Nix tied for the lead on this team in rushing touchdowns with 4. Like, will they lean on him near the goal line next year with a better running back? I mean, he also he had 430 rushing yards because the leader on this team had 513 in Javonte Williams. So that's my question mark. Will it? He already threw a lot of touchdowns, but will the rushing go down if they get a true threat in this backfield?
Yeah, Sean Payton has tended to being a run-heavy type coach. I'm not saying he's going to go more than 50% in playing those plays. But when you look overall, I mean, they want to stay balanced. They want to stay explosive. Yeah, they leaned on Bo Nix to basically do everything and carry the team. In 430 yards rushing, you don't often get anything close to 29 TDs from a quarterback in their rookie season. So all things considered, it was a very good season to break the 30 combined touchdowns. Now, the question is, again, all these variables, does too much change here? I think the Broncos, if anything, are going to upgrade their passing game, look for a tight end, look for a more reliable number 2 receiver. So that's going to help. And I think also getting a back that's consistent to stay out there for 3 downs, who can protect, run the ball, and also catch outlet passes from Bo Nix, that's also going to be huge. So I think playing off that balance and getting a few more explosive plays with a few more weapons is going to kind of outweigh maybe a little bit less from Bo Nix, but they see the potential. I think they have to run to set up the pass a little bit better. So if that's effective, and again, we don't have a lot of production from those backs, we'll see if it's more of a back who's on the field for 3rd down and catches passes, or just kind of an early down guy. Then you'd feel good about Bo Nix throwing a lot downfield on 3rd down versus taking check down. So when we look at all the talent with Bo Nix, the athleticism, the arm, everything is there to have a season like Jayden Daniels. But I see everything positive here to build on what basically was a near bottom QB1 top 12 performance last year.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll get any better. Like I don't want to just say, oh, Bo Nix had such a good rookie season, he's going to be great next year. Like I do think we can maybe see a CJ Stroud type season with him, with maybe a little bit more certainty, with a little bit more rushing. But also an area to grow is he did this with Cortland Sutton, who none of us were high on to start the year, right? Yeah. And not a lot else out there, and not a running game. So if they put more weapons around him, he could definitely be much better. And maybe this is just going to be a guy that everyone's kind of underrating for too long. And maybe we will, I'll eat my words saying Bo Nix I don't think he's a top 5 type of quarterback. I think he's more like top 12. But I mean, I am excited to see where his future goes. Now, Drake Maye, we got limited, playing time from him. He started 13 games, but he only had 12 games. He only had 10 games, though, with at least 10 pass attempts, because a couple of those games he got injured quickly or just taken out. But in the games he had at least 10 pass attempts, he averaged 16.4 fantasy points per game. Nothing to get super excited about, and no huge games in there either. But I will say he had 421 rushing yards despite only starting 12 games and really playing in 10 games. That's the 9th most rushing yards among quarterbacks. And to compare it, Caleb Williams had 489, Bo Nix had 430 in a full 17 games. And again, Drake Maye, 421 in limited playing time. So he used his legs, and he had literally no weapons whatsoever. We knew this going in. So if they get him a true wide receiver 1 with Josh McDaniels, do you think Drake Maye has top 10 fantasy abilities next year or, in the near future?
I don't think we're going to see it next year just because I don't think the weaponry is there right now. The Patriots need to restore that and the strength of all that. We talked about the receivers in flux. They need to go consider getting a receiver right away in the draft that can help them at, I think, number 4 overall. So when you're looking at that, they need to upgrade that quite a bit. You got to see what Maye does in the Josh McDaniels offense, making an adjustment already. 2 years, second system had Alex Van Pelt, and that Brown system stolen from Kevin Stefanski, but still offense is okay. But now they have their familiar offense of Josh McDaniels and what they want to accomplish in New England with the weather, with the situation. How do you get the best out of Drake Maye? Like, he's a terrific athlete, so he's going to move around and make those plays when they break down on the ground. I just think they're going to be a little bit just run protected here this season. They're going to upgrade their offensive line and take pressure off Drake Maye until they settle him with his receivers and all that. So I think he does have top 12 potential. The physical talent is there. I just don't think you're going to see it here in 2025. I think you need a little bit more time. You need to gel with a few more weapons. He's absorbing basically a brand new system to him, and it kind of resets him as a rookie in some sense. So again, I think when you look at Maye, and be careful. I think he's a very good, solid QB2 to get in the 20s somewhere and see where his upside might take you. But again, I don't see him draftable where I think Nix, Daniels, and Williams certainly are at this point.
What's interesting is I think CJ Stroud will still be drafted next year, right? In one quarterback leagues.
Of course, yeah.
They average the same amount of points per game. Maye averaged 13 fantasy points per game. Stroud did too, 13 fantasy points per game. And like I said, Maye in the actual games he played, and not just like played a couple snaps, it was 16.4 points per game. So well above Stroud. But I don't think anyone would consider taking Drake Maye over CJ Stroud next year. While I do think Maye offers more rushing upside, and we saw Maye put up the same performance as Stroud this year, despite having no one to throw to and Stroud having players to throw to. So do you think Maye should be ranked higher than Stroud next year? I guess is my main question.
I'm not sure I'm ready to go there yet. I think I have to wait and see a little bit because, again, it was so washy for Drake Maye, especially, again, with that offense as being not what we're going to see a lot of with the concepts this year. It's a little bit more complicated. Keep in mind, the McDaniels learning curve is not just overnight necessarily. I mean, they might have run some things because some players and coaches were there, right, from the McDaniels era. So there might have been some concepts he kind of understood, but it is a little bit complicated. It's a little bit more diverse. Again, we're not sure how all the weapons are going to play out at this stage. The Patriots could really lean on the run. So I'm going to be buyer beware, but it would not surprise me if Maye has a nice season that puts him in the top 20, but I'm taking him out of that range at this point.
We had 2 more quarterbacks go in the first round of last year's draft, and Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy. Saw very little of Penix Jr. and not anything of J.J. McCarthy, but we're going to figure out their fantasy value moving forward right after a quick break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We got to see Michael Penix Jr. start 3 games as a rookie, the last 3 games of the season. He did get better in each game. The first game, his first start, 6.4 fantasy points. Not good. Second game, 11.2 fantasy points. Not good. But third start, 25 fantasy points against the Panthers. They go into overtime. It was a super fun game. He definitely showed off his passing abilities at the start of the end of the week 17 and then throughout that week 18 game. However, he rushed for 3, and 5 rushing yards in those 3 starts, a total of 11 rushing yards. So no rushing upside. He didn't really have it in school either. What are your thoughts on him as a fantasy prospect moving forward? Because I'm not too high on him.
Yeah, the one thing I will say that works in Michael Penix's favor, and I have him potentially has a better situation than Drake Maye in terms of the weapons, right? He's got Bijan Robinson, very good runner, but also a very good receiver.
Sure.
Then he got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, take him or leave him. Still have Darnell Mooney. There are some weapons here in this Falcons offense that can do some things, and I think the system is very good. Keep that in mind. I think with Atlanta and Minnesota, very similar situations where they're transitioning here to kind of similar systems with younger quarterbacks. And Atlanta's also probably going to keep throwing because their defense still has to improve quite a bit. Their pass rush stinks. They're still going to fall apart defensively under Raheem Morris. They fired their defensive coordinator, Jimmy Lake. So you know how bad things are on the other side for Atlanta. That's going to mean a lot of chucking from Michael Penix. And he's not a complete zero running. He really didn't do it in college, but he did show some movement ability at the combine and pre-draft workouts last year. So it's intriguing just because, again, you start with Drake London, and we're expecting some good things out of Drake London. Now, where else do you get your scoring from, and where are the numbers going to come from? Penix is not going to give you a lot of running. So in terms of getting a cheat code type plays, you're not going to get them the way that you might even from Nix and Maye, right? They're a little bit even more mobile to back up what Daniels and Williams do. So, look, I'm not super high on Michael Penix, but I could see him as a sleeper only because – I think there's going to be higher passing volume with these skilled players just based on this whole game situation for Atlanta.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get him into the top 15 in rankings. Like, I don't think it'll probably be hard to even get him top 20 just because it's really hard to predict any rushing. He's going to have to depend on passing touchdowns a lot and a lot of volume. But like you said, the defense could struggle. And that will help him. But I definitely will have Drake Maye ranked higher than Penix for this upcoming year, as long as the Patriots don't mess up this draft, right? As long, if they get cute and take an edge, 4th overall, and then kick the can down the road to get Maye really great targets, then all right, then I probably have to move Maye down. But if they surround Maye with better weapons this year, I will have Maye ahead of Penix Jr. That's for sure. Now, the complete question mark is J.J. McCarthy because he had a red shirt rookie year. He did not play at all, got put on IR before the season even started. It went to Sam Darnold, and he played great until the end of the season. I will say Sam Darnold's a free agent, right? So we're all just expecting J.J. McCarthy to step in. We don't know if the Vikings will re-sign Sam Darnold, right? They did go 14-3 with him. The last 2 games were miserable, including the wild card round. But I have a fun little note here. No quarterback has won 14 or more games with a team and then left for a new team that following offseason. So Sam Darnold would be the first guy to ever do it. Now, does Kevin O'Connell think Sam Darnold won him games or Kevin O'Connell's offense, right? And how great the defense was. I think they might lean more on the coach's side here. So hopefully we see J.J. McCarthy. Now, if McCarthy does take over for Darnold, can we expect him to put up Sam Darnold fantasy numbers like he did this year?
Well, it's a very good system. We know Kirk Cousins is produced in it. We know Sam Darnold's produced in it. And this is basically the Sean McVay adjacent system, much like Atlanta with Zach Robinson. And you have Sean McVay's influence carrying over there. Same thing with Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell was backstage there. Happened to be at the NFL honors, and he was like really trying to lobby to get Sam Darnold back. But I don't see that as the smart move necessarily for the Vikings. I think McCarthy does have some high ceiling. We just saw a quarterback in college win a championship with his mobility and then do that again in the NFL with his upside and working hard. So I'm not saying McCarthy's that level of quarterback, but he's inheriting the keys to a pretty nice ride here. When you look at with Justin Jefferson, number 1/number 2 best fantasy receiver, right? Period. And then you're looking at Jordan Addison coming on strong, maybe a top 20 guy. You have a pretty good tight end, which is always a very favorable asset for a young quarterback. Essentially, McCarthy is a rookie, even though he's going into year 2. So you've got 3 weapons right off the bat. You've got very good coaching staff with O'Connell. So I think you'd be in a very comfortable situation there to produce. And this is why I don't think they need to go get Sam Darnold, because you've already seen your ceiling. You know what you can do. You have a high floor in general because of your passing game system and the talent on the field. So McCarthy adds that element. He's got a bigger arm. He can move around a little bit better. He can give you some ability outside the pocket that Darnold cannot. So I think they're going to go with McCarthy. Everyone says trade McCarthy, play Darnold, but you already know you're going to be capped at some point when you face a better defense. look, McCarthy might run into the same thing, but we have evidence of Darnold falling flat in bigger games down the stretch that the Vikings need to be wary of.
Yeah, you really did. I think it'd be really stupid of them to pay Sam Darnold. Like, I think Sam Darnold showed you that O'Connell's system is great, right? I mean, because he was so bad before coming here. He never threw more than 19 passing touchdowns in a season in his career. And then he had 35 with Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings this year. He never scored more than 14 fantasy points in any season of his career. He scored 18.1 points per game this year. So that gives you hope, right? For any quarterback under O'Connell. If he could do it with Sam Darnold, he could do it with anyone. But just like Darnold was quarterback 10 in points per game this year. It was much higher. And then, some bad games towards the end of the year kind of pushed him down. And then Kirk Cousins, quarterback 8 in 2023. Cousins, quarterback 13 in 2022. Stafford, quarterback 11 in 2021 with the Rams under O'Connell as OC. He has a long history of like taking these guys who are not mobile, right? Who are pocket passing quarterbacks. And I think McCarthy would probably be the most mobile guy he probably has among this group, and getting them to throw a lot of touchdowns, and just being efficient and productive. So J.J. McCarthy is going to be hard to rank because we've never seen him, but I will not be surprised if he has a season like Bo Nix had this year.
Yeah, I'd say of all three of these guys, when you put Maye with McDaniels and Penix with Robinson and McCarthy with O'Connell, I think McCarthy's in the best situation to succeed. Again, is an elite receiver that has fallen right into his lap here, and he also can move a little bit himself. He's got a big arm. So all that says he's in the best position. I think he kind of combines some of the positive attributes of Maye and Penix, where he can make every throw like Penix, but he can also move around like Maye. So that lines up pretty well here. But again, schematically, I think those other guys can be okay. But in terms of personnel and being established and everything all around here, I think J.J. McCarthy might have the most appeal. It's pretty close between him, Maye, and Penix for me on who I would want to take a shot on. I mean, I'm not going to draft any of these guys as more than 2 QB league type of guys. I did have McCarthy in the keeper league we played in here because I thought he was going to do something, but then I picked up Darnold looking at the system. So I believed in that system enough to tap him to do it twice last year. So that's why I think that system says I'd take even in a above average, slightly above quarterback in that system than a solid to better quarterback in a bad system.
Yep, I totally agree with you there. That is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We will be back with you tomorrow talking about the 2023 quarterback class. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.